Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome to another episode of The Road Less Traveled. We are incredibly excited because we have the famous Matthew Whitaker on with us today that built a company that is incredibly, everybody looks at actually, that you started the company in 2008 and then decided you wanted to rebrand to Evernest and built the company so far to one of the biggest property management companies in the United States to 15,000 units. Matthew, thank you for being on with us today. I'm incredibly excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was a kind introduction, and I'm really excited to be here.
Well, thank you. And I am excited to break down. You started in the property management industry in 2008, right?
That's right. Yeah, after swearing I was never going to be a property manager or a real estate agent.
Well, you kind of came in at I would say, a rough time.
I did. I mean, it was the whole reason that I became a property manager and a real estate agent was during the recession. I had 30 doors. I was always going to be a house flipper, investor. I made a lot of money during the 2000s just buying and selling houses. I did over 100 deals in my 20s. And then I got to 2008. I owned about 30 houses when the market crashed. And I don't think people realize if you're under the age of 40 how bad it was. A lot of times we go through a little bit of a dip in the real estate market and everybody thinks, oh man, this was terrible. But it was like literally the whole world shut down for at least 2 or 3 years.
It was bad. And I don't think I realized how bad it was because I was pretty naive at that time. That's when we were getting into it. But why did you decide to go from buying and selling to actually getting into the property management game? Was it because you owned 30? Or was there another reason behind it?
Yeah, it really was a crossroads. I remember riding to work one day and deciding, do I want to stay in this housing business? I've been in it 4 or 5 years. Do I want to make a go at it in 2008? I mean, if I'd have known how long the recession was going to last, I probably would have made a different decision. But I thought, hey, I'll rent these houses. I'll just outlast the recession. Maybe it'll create some buying opportunities. And I'll just kind of like wait until it turns around. Well, it took 5 years for it to turn around. And by that time, I had gotten excited about the property management business. We had built the business up to a couple hundred doors. And I went to my first NARPM conference and got really excited about building what I thought at the time would be a regional business.
That's interesting. You said that you might have made a different decision if you knew how long the recession would have lasted. I'm like... I was a kid in a candy shop. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but that's when we got in and started investing and building the property management company. And I was like, this is the best time ever. Because I had a mentor that was like, this is like RTC time again. Like, you need to buy up everything possible. I mean, it was just, for the people that were struggling, it was a horrible time. But for the people that just got in, it was a time to really make it rain, in essence. But as you built it up to 200 units, what made you shift, though, from you all of a sudden goes, I'm going to build this sky high. I'm going to go everything I can do, because property management is not for the weak and the wary, I would say. What made you want to go all in? It is a hard job.
Yeah, once again, if I'd known how hard it was going to be, I probably wouldn't have made that decision either. But when I went to this conference, I saw another group that had grown their home count to about 5,000 homes. And then I saw everybody else was kind of smaller. And I thought, well, if this group can grow it to 5,000 homes, I think I can use technology. And this was really when people were switching from paper ledgers and maybe Excel. That was what the extent of the technology was, into more of the property management software. So this was time when Appfolio was getting started. And I just thought, I couldn't have put it into words at the time, but I thought technology was going to give us a lot of operating leverage to be able to scale to different markets. And it was just really hard if you're doing everything on paper to scale to multiple markets. And so that's why the business for forever has just been a cottage business with people in market doing property management. And there's some other reasons why that's still the case, but back then it was a technology limiter.
Yes, I can't even imagine. I remember when we started pretty much on QuickBooks. Like all the owners were in QuickBooks. At least that wasn't like, handwritten items all the way. But what was the first software you went on that kind of changed the transition of, oh, maybe this can be more?
So he's a friend of mine now, but we started on Propertyware.
Same.
And then we switched to Property Boss. And there's a funny story about this because Sina is a good friend and started Propertyware, but I had just gotten into the business when I went to that first conference. And the NARPM conference used to have a golf tournament. So they would have the past president's golf tournament, and they would do that to raise money for a charity. And I flew all the way to Seattle from Alabama, which is not a and I overslept the bus the next morning, and ended up jumping in the car with a few guys, and we're on the way to the golf course, and it's probably a 25-minute ride. And on the way there, this guy asked me, what property management software are you on? And I said, well, I used to be on Propertyware, but I just switched to Property Boss. And he said, well, why, tell me why you switched from Propertyware. And I went into the reasons that I switched from Propertyware. Well, I said, well, after spilling my guts on this software, what do you do? And he said, well, I'm the CEO of Propertyware. I started Propertyware. So I said, please don't let me out right here on the side of the road. But Sina was very kind, and he was gracious, and obviously he went on to build a great business and sold that business. So he was okay. He didn't need Matthew's business, but just a funny story there.
No, Sina is a great guy, very humble, very great guy to work with. So when you started from not having software to having software and then transitioning to another software, how has software actually helped you be able to grow your business? Because you said you're in multiple markets now. How's it helped you do it?
Yeah, we've gone through several iterations of this, right? The first software, Propertyware, then to Property Boss. One of the cool things about Property Boss was, and I don't know if they're still in existence, they tried to make a comeback 3 or 4 years ago. They had real-time owner, like a live owner portal. That was really cool at the time. I mean, we're talking about 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And then switched to AppFolio about a decade ago. And the thing I would say is, each time we switch, we had our reasons for switching. Sometimes when you switch softwares, you give up something to get things. I always tell people, unless you think the software is going to be 50% better, I wouldn't suggest switching softwares. One of the challenges we've had as we've grown the business is most of these softwares are purpose-built for the 300 to 500 unit business. And as we got up bigger than that, and we ran into some issues where the workflows didn't work as easily as they were intended. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, we started writing our own software. And the first thing we did was we built a data warehouse, and then we started building workflows. The first piece of the workflows we built, because there was no purpose built for this, is the maintenance side of the business. So we built a whole maintenance software that sat on top of the data warehouse. And then we've just continued to move all of our workflows and all of our communication into open, is what we call it, the operating platform for Evernest.
So I want to piggyback off that, because everybody listening here is like, oh, should I just go build my own software? At what point was it like, we have this huge pain point, we need to start building? Because some people don't look at the cost of what that's gonna cost. I laugh because it's not cheap. But at what point was it like, this is what we need for the business, and we understand it's gonna cost this, but it's gonna take us here?
Yeah, and a lot of people, I would say my answer to this has changed a lot over the last 6 months, with the ability to build software much more cheaply, much more quickly, without a lot of risk in certain cases. I would say, the original conversation was just around, does it allow us to do business at scale and allow us to have visibility into what's going on? And the answer was no, it didn't. So we had to go build it ourselves and build the things the tools that we needed to operate at scale. It's changed a little bit today, because a lot of these, what I would call horizontal softwares, meaning the Monday.com or the Asanas that fit across multiple different businesses. People are able to build these things fairly, they're not able to recreate Asana. I mean, you can't recreate Asana or Monday, but you can create the pieces that you need without a lot of heavy lifting. And so people are starting to do that. And so the game is starting to change on people's ability to build their own software and tooling. In the past, you just had to run it the way your property management software told you to run it. And now it's starting to open up, and you're starting to get the ability to run it more the way you think it ought to be run.
Oh, so incredibly true. So where do you think this will take you? And before you get to that, does every single area that you have an office in run off of your software?
They do. Yeah,
Okay.
every business runs off of Open, and then we still use AppFolio for property accounting.
Okay. So really, AppFolio is only your property accounting, and then everything else runs through your software.
That's right.
That's interesting. Has it been a pain point to onboard other companies, or has it been pretty easy to do that?
Yeah, anytime you onboard a new company, it's very hard. I will tell you, we've done it now 30 plus times. So we've figured out a bunch of ways not to do it, and we're getting better each time. With 30 reps, you ought to get better. I will tell you, as the software gets better and better, and it's improved so much just over the 2026, the first 5 months of 2026. As the software gets better, it makes it easier and easier to integrate. It's becoming more and more intuitive. We've got some automation, call it AI, that's running some pieces of the business now. And so more and more, the business are becoming easier to integrate. And what's cool about the software now is it's starting to free our team up to be more customer service friendly. And so a lot of people talk about how AI is going to replace jobs, and I do think that there's a good possibility that happens in the future. For now, for us, it is how can we become better property managers? And I've always thought that it's hard to manage at scale, and it's hard to compete with the small mom and pop property manager in a market. They're an admirable competitor because they do a really good job. But I do think that a time is coming really quickly with the technology and our ability to get information and data and make great decisions really quickly, where we're at least as good as the local PM.
Now, I have a question on that. How have you allowed your company to grow at scale? Because that's the number one issue with people growing at different levels, to make sure the customer service is there. How have you done that with tech and your people to compete against the mom and pop? And there's two sides to that, but how have you done that?
Yeah, I would say we've done it okay. We're probably done it like a 4 or 5 out of 10 so far. The thing that our tech is now enabling our teams to do is just have better visibility into what's going on. At scale, as leaders and as managers, we have better visibility into what's going on. We know sooner when an owner or a resident is frustrated. And so, the big challenge with a bigger business when you have 400 or 500 team members is it's kind of, parts of it are a black box. Yeah, you can follow KPIs and you can try to stay on top of it, but a lot of it is backwards looking stuff. And we're getting more and more to real-time information being surfaced. And we're also getting better at understanding why people leave, why doors churn, and just trying to get out ahead of that and mitigate why doors churn.
Do you mind sharing your churn rate? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, it's gotten much better, but today we're in the low 20s, like 22%.
Okay.
And it's been much higher than that, and we've been working on it very hard over the last, call it 18 months. And I actually think it's going to get better than that. We have some early indications that it's going to get better.
I bet it will get better. The reason why I asked that is because I think people look at buying PMC companies and they're like, hey, I'm going to buy this company that's my size or bigger. And I don't think they realize that you got to have something on the back end making sure you don't churn those because you're a new business. So how do you, I mean, as you grow, have you seen that number go up and then it's going to come back down like you said? Because the small mom and pops, they can stay in on the day-to-day a little bit more. So have you seen that number go up as you've scaled a little bit?
In terms of the
churn, yeah.
Yeah, so it did. I think that the new world, because we know better what's going on, we have better visibility, better systems. I think that we're at the precipice of sub 20% churn as a big business. And I think, again, we're providing a better product than we ever have before. Or one of the cool things that we've been talking about internally is our NPS score is up 20 points quarter over quarter. That just doesn't happen unless you're doing a much better job. And our team, enabled by technology, has done a really good job of property management lately.
That's amazing. So the next question is, if a big business, do you think they can get sub 15% or 10%? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I don't think sub 10% is even possible because especially on the retail client, because if you think about it, if I'm a new client today and I have a 3% mortgage and home price appreciation is 3 to 5% over the next 5 or 6 or 7 years, like it just doesn't make sense that the average customer is going to hang around with that much equity in their home. Now, we may figure out some sophisticated ways to keep those people a little bit longer. We may try to turn them into investors and say, take one house and buy 2, buy 3, buy 4. But a lot of times the one house investor is going to say, nothing against Evernest. They've done a great job for these 7 years. But I have $500,000 of equity built up in this house, and I need to access that. Maybe my kid's going to college, or maybe I'm about to retire. And it doesn't seem like somebody's going to keep it over 10 years. So getting to 10% churn, which would be 10 years, somebody being on your platform 10 years, seems like an impossibility. Now, I do think 15%, 18%, we actually think if we can get sub 18%, that we will organically grow, really well at sub 18%. And so we think of it as a 1.5 every month of churn is what we're shooting for.
That's incredible. And as you talked about that organic growth, how, as you've bought businesses in different areas of the country, have you made sure organic growth still happens so you don't just churn out the back door?
No, it's a great question. And I think we've actually changed the way we've looked at this. In the past, when we would buy a business, we would basically add a cost of customer acquisition on an expected churn rate to see what it would take to keep those cash flows going forever. Like, how can I keep net churn at 0 on that book? The new way we look at it is we think of a book as if we buy 100 doors, it's always going to be 100 doors. And the only thing it's going to do is melt from there. Now, our goal as property managers is to keep those doors from melting as long as we possibly can. Let's keep the ice cube alive as long as we can. But at the end of that is some sort of like terminal 0, right? It may take 20 years, it may take 30 years. And we look at it as how much cash is that business going to produce for us over the expected lifetime. So we basically built a cash flow model to say, if we invest this much cash, what's our rate of return going to be? And the way we're thinking about it now is, we know what our historical churn rate is on the last 30 acquisitions. And so we just apply that, and we're going to get better and better. So this will get better and better, and maybe our ability to pay a little bit more for doors in the future will come about. But, and then we say, hey, how long will that cash flow last? And what are we willing to pay for that cash flow? And that's how we price acquisitions today.
Okay, so I love that you brought that up because I haven't heard anybody do it. You do cash on cash. Do you do an analysis on cash? That's how. Okay.
We do an IRR, yep,
Uh-huh.
and we basically say, this is how much cash we're going to put in, and how much cash are we going to get annually, accepting some rate of churn on the way out.
100%. Okay, I love that because there's not a lot of people that actually analyze it. I know the big players are starting to analyze it more on cash because you can pay higher dollars amount usually for it. Have you seen what has been the biggest hurdle, biggest issue as you've grown into all these markets, as you're doing this and you're buying all these businesses?
I would say just maintaining great people. We have a fantastic team today. Our team is as good as it has ever been, and we've had some great people that have come here and helped us grow the business to get it to where we are. And everybody's kind of like played a part in getting us to here. But the biggest challenge is it's still a people-oriented business. I do think technology is going to help enable them to have more visibility, but it still takes great people running that technology. And even when we're running AI agents doing a lot of the monotonous work that property managers do today, we're still going to have fantastic people sitting at the head of those, running those agents. And there's some jobs that are coming fairly quickly that I think will be jobs that are people running these AI agents. I hesitate to say one because usually you're wrong when you say one, but it's amazing what you can get done with some of this technology today.
I love that you said that because a lot of times in advertising, softwares will advertise, hey, replace a team member. And I cringe when I hear that. Replace like everybody, because in reality, the technology has to be watched. The technology has to be looked at. Otherwise it breaks. Who's going to fix it? Right. And so it's more like a companionship. Now I do agree there will be jobs that will go away from it, but as y'all grow, the technology is a companion to your team. And the AI agents, y'all have a lot of AI agents deployed right now. For everything, okay.
But we think we're just scratching the surface. I think this will probably, over the next 90 days, 4 or 5x. Yeah. So we're on a sprint right now to deploy as much of it as possible. And you nailed it. Like the best thing to happen is Evernest grows, and your business grows. And we continue to keep the head count we have. Maybe somebody leaves and you don't replace them. That's the most ideal, because the reality too is you want people to help you build the technology, right? And so there's a principle in lean manufacturing where you don't want to cut out people just because of the technology, because then nobody will help you implement lean manufacturing. But you want to be able to scale the organization on the same people. And what's great, the thing I would say it's great for the people that are here is we can afford to pay you more money, right? If you're handling more tasks, and we can afford to pay you more money. But I will tell you too, as a warning to the people that are in the industry and anybody that's like running a role, is you are going to have to embrace the technology, because it is going to be part of the future. It is going to be part of your job. And those people who are, pushing back against the technology are going to be the ones that you can't keep, because technology becomes such a big part of it, then it's too hard to retrain them, get them to buy into the idea of the technology. And so if I was a team member on your team or a team member on my team today, I would really embrace it and not be scared of it. And what's great is it's so new. This AI and tech is so new that all of us are learning. And so it's not like you're far behind. You can jump in today, start playing with it, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish. We have a young lady here at Evernest named Lizzie, and she's a property manager, and she's building like dashboards and all, like it's just shocking what she's building. And we're saying, keep doing it, continue to lean into this. Why does this help you? Why do you have this number up there? And so we can ask her questions. And then we're starting to build, or we'll start to build that into our open platform, so that other property managers can use it. And you need those types of people as well that are on the bleeding edge of trying to see, hey, how can I make my job easier with this technology?
I think you brought something up that's incredibly important, because I think you have some team members that get nervous and scared about, oh, my job's gonna be replaced, and then you have some that really lean into it, that are excited about it, that understand it. Matthew, how have you helped your team understand this is not to replace you, this is to help you, this is to help us grow all together? Because without it, we won't be in business pretty much in a couple of years. So how have you done that with your team?
Well, I mean, you have to keep repeating that message over and over again, right? The thing I would say that's happened over the last 5 or 6 months is you create some small wins, and then you tell those wins to the team, and then you have a few more people that come and say, hey, I would like to do this, and then they do that, and then it creates wins. And then it's kind of like the proverbial flywheel. Once you get that heavy flywheel going, it's kind of hard to stop. And right now we have so many people that are interested in it that we have a bunch of people. We almost have the inverse problem of too many people doing too many different things, that it can get out of hand. Now, I would rather have that and try to rein that back in than have somebody that, have an organization that's just like scared of technology. And so, we're trying to figure out how do we rein it all in? How do we institutionalize it into the organization? And the thing I would say is you're exactly right. Like, the people that are afraid of this technology replacing their jobs, by virtue of the fact that they're afraid it's going to replace their jobs and they don't lean on it, it's what they end up being their own worst enemy, because then they become they are the first person that gets replaced, because they're the ones that aren't embracing the technology. And so I would think of it too, like, as a tool. It is a tool in the tool belt, and it's just a very long lever of a tool. You can do a lot of really cool things with it.
You can. Like, Claude is one of my favorite tools, and there's so many. There's Lovable. There's so many things out that can help our jobs become easier, but also not just easier, but help the client feel like they're attached. And today, at least in our business, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this, clients really want updates on a different level. They want to feel connected on a different level, at least that we feel that way. Do you feel the same way? Like, updates, understanding, being a part?
Absolutely. I think what's going to be really cool in the future, and this is not like 2 years from now, but a client can choose their own adventure. We have clients that say, just call me if the house burns down. And we have clients that say, I want to know, the minute somebody arrives at the house to fix the toilet or whatever is broken. And so we can allow clients to choose their own adventure in the future. You can have as much communication as you want or as little communication as you want. I think the other cool thing is we're going to allow them to make better decisions, right? Because what AI does a really good job of is taking historical context. So we can have all the information about that dishwasher loaded in, and then all the data that has to do with how long these dishwasher last, and we can help predict the future for them. So we can help them make better investment decisions. I think the world is headed, we actually just did a podcast on this. I think the world is headed to kind of like a barbell of property managers, which is, boutique, a lot of customer service property managers, and then really big, massive companies that are driven by technology. Maybe even people are interacting with just technology, but the value they bring is, a lot of services for much cheaper, a whole suite of services much cheaper, and then also the ability to get the work done in the local markets. And that would allow people to run their business, even if they have only 10 or 5 rental homes. You run it more like the CEO of that business versus, being a client of a property management company. So I do think the industry is going to change. I don't think it's going to be overnight, but I see a future where the industry, I think a lot of industries hollow out the middle too. The perfect example would be the book industry, right? Like, Amazon basically hollowed out the middle because we've got a great bookseller right down the street that the guy owns this little bookshop. It's called Little Professor. And you can show up and see the guy that buys all the books and talk to him, and you can buy a book and get a cup of coffee. And it's just a highly relational business. Or I can buy it from Amazon. I'm definitely not going to Books A Million anymore, which what I would say is in the middle. But I don't think they even exist, actually. I think Barnes & Noble still does. Because I don't get the relationship with the guy, and I also don't get to buy I don't get the convenience and the efficiency of Amazon.
Oh, I totally agree with you that it does hollow out the middle a lot of times. Now, this is going to be a question that some will be like, I don't agree with it, but where do you see management fees going with the tech that's coming into play? Because I have my opinion on it, but I'd love to hear yours. Where do you see management fees going with all the tech that's coming into the property management industry?
Yeah, when we sent that barbell thought out, it got a lot of pushback, got a lot of comments, and somebody followed up to me on the side and said, "Hey, I actually agree with what you're saying, that it's going to be boutique and it's going to be big national players." And I said, I didn't do a great job of communicating it, so I'm gonna set the record straight on your show. The two questions I think property managers are going to have to answer in the future, and whether that's just 2 years from now or 5 years from now, I don't know. But the two questions, as a property manager, company owner, you're going to have to answer yes to one of these questions. Is do I know every single one of my owners? That's the question. And if you can say yes to that, then your business is going to be fine. If you say no to that, the second question should be, can I run my business on a 0% management fee? Because I do think that it's possible that maybe we don't get to 0%, but we get to 2%. And so I think that that's where the camps are going. And, Jeff Bezos used to always say, your margin is my opportunity. And so, it's not like these big companies, and I don't even think mine's big yet, right? Like I think big is think Greystar that manages 800,000 units. Like that's big. But what they're going to do is there's going to be a time where they start to figure out the technology. It is going to expand their gross margin for some period of time because they're going to be able to manage for cheaper, and they're going to have management fees up here. But then there's going to be other people figure that out, and then there's going to be a competition to go out and get as many doors as possible to get as much density as possible, and that's going to compress gross margin because they're going to compress prices. Now, I'm not saying it's going to go to zero. I don't know. But 2% like a realistic number, or 3%. And they're going to make money other ways, like we make money other ways. But I just, to me, it's crystal clear that that's going to happen with today's technology, with today's technology playing out over the next, X number of years.
So I love that you said that. I'm actually 100% on the same wavelength, because I'm like, it's going to happen, because when tech comes in, you figure out how to manage cheaper with great quality, but you figure out how to get your margins where, think about it, Walmart, their net profit is 2.03%. They have figured out the masses. And if you can figure out the masses with the tech behind it, on a daily basis, on the minute basis, they know when something leaves and something comes back, and they're already reordering. And if you can figure out that process, then all of a sudden, guess what? You can figure out how to lessen the cost of everything. And so I love that you brought that up, because we've been looking at that. How do you bring management fees down? How do you bring management fees down? And so we're playing with it right now to see. And we're tiny. We're little bitty people. But I think that's where the market's going. But we look up to Evernest and the big boys of what they're doing and how they're changing the game. Because that is one thing I believe. If you look at the big players and what they're doing, and you figure out how to do it at a smaller, then you can start to gain traction a little bit.
Let me tell you something else that I think the industry has wrong, and I've been thinking about a lot lately, is you have all sorts of dead bodies on the side of the road of companies that came in and said they're going to disrupt this industry with technology, right? Like
Yeah.
we can name them all probably together. I think you said something earlier in the podcast, which I think is really interesting, is you got into the property management space at the perfect time because you were able to get in kind of like when things were messy, and you were able to build your business when the wind was in your sails. And what I'm starting to think is those companies didn't have it wrong. They were just too early for the space. And they actually had it right. They just had the wrong timing. And so I think we're getting into a window, and there's some companies out there that a lot of people have written off too, that are, came in as technology companies that are hanging around the hoop, that are still trying to figure out. I think that we're getting into a sweet spot of a window where a lot of these companies are going to actually finally figure it out, the technology companies. And I think that we're kind of like in a new wave. We're going to enter a new world and a new wave of the property management industry, very similar to when you and I got into the business during the 2010s, where the appfolios kind of changed the way the game was played on the field. I think in 2025, 2026. That game's changing again. And that makes sense. Like every 15 or so years, the game changes, and here we are. I think that we're at the beginning of a change in the game.
Oh, 100%. I think this is a phenomenal time to be in property management. It's a phenomenal time to invest. Investors are coming out of the woodworks because when everybody's scared, guess what? It's time to pick up properties. And so, and then the same thing, everybody that's scared with AI or everybody that's scared, it's a phenomenal time. Dive deep, go hard into it, because if you do, you will come out on the other side better. Now you're going to grind. It's going to hurt a little bit. You're going to fall. You're going to skin your knee. But if you do it, then you come out a lot better on the other side.
Yeah, I can tell you I'm more excited than I've been in a long time. I'm working on Saturdays, having fun with Claude, probably similar to you, and trying to say, hey, can you do this? Like, what if we did this? What if, and so it's a fun time to be back building. And so a lot of the builders are excited about it again, because we know the game's changing. And so we want to be on the front end of that. We saw it last time. And now we want to, at each inflection point, if you can take advantage of it, then you're going to get, some percentage of that upside on the backside.
100%. Now, as you've been building and as we're talking about all this tech doesn't fall on your shoulders, because then you wouldn't be able to be the CEO of the business. When did you decide to hire someone to kind of handle the tech side? I'm guessing a CTO. When did you hire a CTO in your company? And I'm just assuming here, but I'm guessing with how we've been talking.
We've been I was very fortunate because first of all, I didn't, when call it 5 years ago, when I decided I really want to start to lean into technology, and the team decided, right? I have some really smart people around me, and we started to kind of feel the need to take this burden on. And I was able to lean on a friend of a friend that basically said, hey, I know this guy, he's been building tech for us. And so why don't we see if he can build some tech for Evernest? And so this is actually a guy I grew up with. And so I was able to immediately hire somebody that I trusted. The fear, if you're in the property management space, is like, hey, I know property management. I can smell a good property manager a mile away, but I don't know a good technology person. How do you pick them out? And so I was just very fortunate to be able to find that person, to have that person that I already had a pre-existing relationship with. As we've scaled, we even hired a new head of product, chief product officer, a guy named Vikas Gupta. He's from, he was the CEO of another prop tech business. He came over to run technology for us, and he kind of leads the technology team today. And he does a fantastic job. I mean, the thing I love about him, he's like a practical builder. We haven't raised venture capital money, so we don't have tens of hundreds of millions of dollars to just go throw at technology. And so he's a very practical builder. And one of the cool things about today is, because of Claude Code and Codex, you can build technology for very cheap on a relative basis. In the past, the past 2 or 3 years, you would like write the code, and then you would have it check the code. Now he's writing the code, or the Claude code is writing the code, and they're just checking the code, right? The human in the loop's just checking the code. So now we're able to do 10 or 20 times as much code with our small but mighty tech team.
That's amazing. So, but as you've hired one, what if people are listening? They're like, hey, I need someone in tech to help me get going. You had someone that you trusted. But if someone's going out, and we've dealt with the same thing, and I know a lot of people right now are dealing with this, how do you find someone? And I know what we've done, but what would you recommend? How do you find someone that you can trust, that doesn't get you sued, doesn't get you in trouble with fair housing, doesn't get you in all the other things that happen with property management?
Yeah, I think I would go out and maybe hire a consultant and get them to, what you really need is, the technology world speaks a different language. And so the way I think about it is, like, I'm an American, I speak English, maybe I want to go to Japan and talk to somebody in Japanese, but I don't speak the language. That is almost the identical barrier, because it's like, there's all sorts of different codes that somebody can write the technology in, right? It's not just like there's one computer code. And so how do you even know what code to write it in, right? And so what you need is a translator. And the best way I know to find that is to try to find some sort of consultant, maybe to sit in between you and finding this person that can help you identify, look, these are my needs, these are the things I'd like to build. And then he or she can say, all right, well, based on your needs, like, here's a scope of the expectation of what we would want from a CTO. And then that person can go out and find that, help you find that person. Now, I will tell you though, like, after that person leaves, you still want your CTO to be able to speak, your language as an operator, and not to want to just build cool stuff for cool stuff's sake. And that's the big thing too, is like, when you hire somebody, make sure that you really deeply understand them, that they're not just talking over your head, because you want to make sure that they're building the right things. You don't want to just spin your wheels on building stuff that looks good, but it has no functional use in a property management business.
You said something, I think people need to understand this, because when you hire someone in tech, they love to build. And they will go off and build all these other things if you're not careful. So what we've been doing is diving in, make sure we understand how to talk to Lisa, and we have an advisor on it. But if you're not careful and you don't understand it enough, you could get into a situation where you're just spinning and losing money left and right on this, because they're just building left and all these other things that they get excited to build about. That's what I've heard a lot of people struggle with, is how do you rein these people in, and not in a bad way, but to make sure they stay focused on the outcome. So when you hired someone, you trusted them, but how did you make sure they had a roadmap to what you were really wanting to get to?
Again, Tiffany, I got really lucky here, because the guy I hired, again, that I knew, he was the CEO of another business. His dad started or ran a multi-site equivalent of a Whataburger, or like a fast food chain in Alabama. And so he had some practical use of learning to code when he was the CEO, because he was trying to get data from all of his restaurants. So he's just like a practical guy. And he was an operator first that taught himself the code. That was the lens that may be a lens that somebody else can use. Who's been an operator that basically on the backside taught themselves to code? That would be like maybe a way to approach the problem.
Love it. For all the people that are listening today with the tech that's in the industry, what would you say would be the best advice you could give them to help them build their property management company?
I think the best thing I've ever done, and probably what my superpower is surrounding myself with great people. I've had the good fortune of working with a lot of great people. when I find somebody great, I do not I'm very intentional about trying to attract them to come work with me. Even to the point of saying, I have no pride. Like if I think somebody's going to help Evernest grow, I will just be like, hey, look, all chips on the table. Like, I want you to come here. What's it going to take for you to come here, right? And people want to be wanted, and good people want to be wanted. And we've been able to pull people from other places, not going to other places, coming to Evernest. And so we just been very fortunate. And I will tell you, our leadership team over the years, I mean, it's changed, but it's always been fantastic. And today we have a group of senior leaders that run departments and our regionals. They're fantastic. So, I think if the best advice would be to find the right people, continue to focus on finding the right people, and the business starts to take care of itself after that.
I love that that's the answer you gave, because we talked about tech 9 times out of 10 in this conversation, but it really always comes back to the people that you surround yourself with.
And tech is a people problem, right? Like tech, who to build it is just a people problem. If you find the right people to build the tech, then the tech takes care of itself.
100%. Matthew, I appreciate you coming on today. You are a wealth of knowledge. I know a lot of people look up to you. I know I look up to you with what you've built and what you continue to build. What is Evernest's goal for the next year to 5 years?
Yeah, we want to get to 250,000 units under management. We think that's where density really starts to be density today is helpful in markets where we have density, but just having density across multiple markets, we just think that'll be super helpful and great for our owners, great for our residents. So the goal is to get to 250,000 doors.
Well, I have no doubt you will get there. We really appreciate you coming on today.
I sure hope so.
I have no doubt. Y'all are building something incredible. But where can people find you? I know after listening to this, they're going to want to reach out. Where can they find you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I think that's probably the best place to find me is on LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time.
This was fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you or want to have her on your podcast, visit TiffanyMRosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.